voices. Everybody give it up.
All right, let's give it up for the code.
Give it up for the goal, honey. Get into the look, darling.
Okay. What's going on, everybody? How y'all feeling today? Everybody enjoying Pride so far this year? All right. So I know Olu asked earlier, but has anybody been asked UMask, whether it be on the apps in real life, like what you given in real life? Has anybody experienced that? Okay, so what we're going to do today is navigate that conversation, especially in proximity to Black queer masculinity, why people lean into it, why they lean away from it, our thoughts around it, and everything. In this talented panel are going to speak on a lot of that, okay? So starting out, I wanted to ask the panel the questions, and then there's going to be time for a Q&A. So if you have questions, just hold tight, make a note, and we'll get back to it, okay? All right, so what does masculinity mean within the context of your identity? I want to ask all of you, what does masculinity mean?
I think for me, masculinity is part of who I am, right? I'm a Black gay, I say gay, I'm a Black gay man. So it's just a part of who I am as a human being, as a man, how I move through the world. I'm also a college professor, so how I show up to teach students, knowing that less than 3% of Black people are full-time faculty members in colleges. So it's like that's a role and responsibility for me as well. And then as a Black gay man, particularly with Native Son, it's like how do I mirror the community, but also the best of what we are, but the best of what I think I can be.
And then also, for the group as well, just your pronouns, just to make sure.
So he, him, his.
Okay, all right, and Sincere?
Pronouns, he, him. I feel like for me, masculinity is anything the opposite of what I was born. For me, just conditioning, just things that you're taught growing up. Boys do this, girls do this. Boys not supposed to cry. Girls, you know what I'm saying, are allowed to show emotions. So for me, it's just basically anything. And I don't want to say almost anything, but a lot of what I was basically kind of taught growing up and I shied away from. So that's what masculinity is.
Okay. And you have a specific experience because you're trans male?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Mark?
Pronouns, he, him, girl dependent.
Girl dependent?
If we close enough.
Sometimes.
If we close enough. And for me, masculinity, I always think of it more in the construct, right? Like for me, it's the adjectives that go with it: resilient, strong. Like I don't necessarily see or feel gender when I think of like masculine. So I tend to have it skew more in energy.
And Kalen?
He, him.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I think, for me, I don't think I live on either side of the spectrum. I think I kind of just exist in the middle, and depending on how I wake up one morning or how I feel is how I show up, you know what I mean? But I think for me personally, I think masculinity shows up in my life energy-wise. You know, I think I walk into the room, I command the space. You know, I show up authentically no matter where I am, and I know for a fact I'm a boss, you know what I mean? And many people would see that as masculine energy, you know what I mean? But somebody may say Beyonce has masculine energy because she's a boss, you know what I mean? So I think that's the way that I see it for myself personally.
All right, I wanted to get into some historical aspects of what masculinity is, what it's been like for a lot of us as we identify what it is to us in our everyday life. Emil, historical and cultural influences on Black masculinity, how they impact those with masculine identities. How has that story been navigated in our culture and from your experiences? Okay, so historical and cultural influences on Black masculinity. How has that contributed to the conversation of how masculine identities are articulated?
Got it, okay. Well, I mean, I think you have to go back to slavery, right? Being brought here against our will, being put to work, how Black men were used as you know, to produce, right? To make money, to be field hands, to be labor. And I think that that's kind of how we are looked at. And so with that comes a lot of responsibility of taking care of our families, protecting our families, and things like that. So I think that's where then respectability politics and all that stuff gets into. I think about when I came out to my parents when I was really young, they were like, you know, you already have so much going against you as a black man, and now you're gonna put this on top of it. And I think a lot of black people look at it that way. Black men are supposed to be the center and the cornerstone and the foundation of our communities, but in many ways we know black women are, right? And so I think there's a lot of pressure on black masculinity. There's a lot of weight put on what black masculinity means historically and currently, particularly when you look at statistics and health and incarceration and things like that. It's not easy for us.
Yeah. So more so like a survivalist mindset, because we have to be
Yes.
so many things. Adding that other thing on there is like something we have to be hyper aware of. Do any of you have any thoughts on like the historical landscapes of masculinity?
Well, I think even if we go to like civil rights and talk about Jim Crow, of like how black men were called boy, you know what I mean? So it's already rooted in that, and how I remember this episode of Blackish where they talked about where the wife would make the plate because this is the only place that he can be made to feel like a man. You know what I mean? So I think that then trickles down. I don't think we actually acknowledge how history just kind of changes in today's day and age, and there are ways that trickles down into the way we live our lives and how we all are kind of victims of that, you know, even if we don't even notice it firsthand.
And I would just add to that, and I love the way you said that, it's like emasculating, right? So.
Sincere, you talked about something briefly about like the roles that men and women play and like unlearning a lot of those things. How has that contributed to how you identify or your understanding of masculinity?
So just, okay, growing up, I wasn't forced to be feminine, you know what I'm saying? Even though like it was introduced to me, like, oh, you're really not supposed to be doing that. You're really not supposed to be outside playing football with these boys. Like, really supposed to be in the house with your cousins playing dolls and shit like that.
Right.
So it was just certain things, certain dynamics, like, or if you was a girl playing with the boys, like, you know what I'm saying, like, oh, she's gonna be a dyke boy, she's gonna be a tomboy, or whatever the case may be. Or if it was vice versa, if a boy playing with the girls too much or jumping rope or something is, oh, he's feminine or he's gonna be gay, you know what I'm saying? From just little things as a child. I mean, even I think it's Lil Baby Son.
Yes.
Lil Baby Son, he's always in the media, whatever, comments going crazy on him, grown ass adults really judging a kid for being a kid, saying, oh, he's gay, he's feminine, because of little things that he does, like, oh, he be around his mom too much. When it's like, he's just a kid. You know what I'm saying? Why are you placing gender things, like, you know what I'm saying, on a child? Yeah. So, just certain things that I think, especially in the black community, we tend to like try to keep people in a box.
Right. It's very binary in the way that we allow people to show up. You're either this or that.
Right.
There's no gray area with your identity, your masculinity. You're either masculine or feminine. You're either straight or you gay. Like, there's no gray area. And Marc, I wanted to ask you, because I know you have a lot of work going on with the Butch Queen Project and unpacking a lot of that stuff. What are your findings while working on that project and your thoughts about unlearning a lot of the habits that we've been conditioned to feel in the black community?
So I feel like that's probably how I got to the point of like, again, like the energy spectrum of things. So my personal lived experience with masculinity is shrouded in trauma, right? Like being young, being a softer boy, right? Like having feminine attributes, but them being seen as negative, not really feeling like I'm getting the same, if not more aggressive attention from boys in the family because I'm not as like macho or whatever. And then even growing up and just kind of feeling that weight throughout school, high school, like it wasn't given popular. It was given like, I don't really think I like this. Even when, right, like, and I'll be honest, like, at first, I wasn't completely educated on like them, they, this, that, and the third. But one thing that made the most sense to me is when somebody said, I don't identify as either masculine or feminine, right? Because then even that, I'm just like, well, I think men are trash too. So if I don't gotta identify as one, I don't want to, right?
It's to disassociate.
But as I started my project, as I really grow, as I enter, or while I'm in 40, and as I continue to kind of like move and I find more grace for myself, I find more grace in like just kind of like what this masculine and feminine energy is kind of doing for me. How I felt like I suppressed the feminine in order to be masculine, and realized that whatever that concept was more out of fear than it was because I naturally wanted to be this thing. And as I get to move and naturally just kind of exist, I find that, and which I feel like we forget, is that it's necessary for both energies, right? Like, I'm not sure how many creatives are in the room, but again, like when we start to associate like energy with this actual construct, creativity is a feminine attribute, right? Sensuality is a feminine attribute. Like, and the sensitivity is a feminine attribute. And these are things that we want in people. I want somebody to have the grace and be sensitive enough to come to a conversation and be a certain way. And there's nothing weak about that, right? So you do need the strong and the providing and the protection and all that, but you need the creation, you need the birth, you need all the things in order to be really like complete.
You got to my next question. I like that. Thank you. But now I wanted to talk about the dichotomy of masc versus femme. Not even masc versus femme, masc and femme. Like how the masc and the femme binary is perpetuated within the Black LGBTQ plus community in a larger society. Like how are they asking us to show up as in our masculine energies or in our feminine energies, just to be placed into a spot that is palatable to the larger community? Because like people like to say, hey, I can identify you as this, or I can identify you as that, and that makes me feel comfortable. And like, how do we perpetuate a lot of that, wanting to be palatable as well? This is a question for the group.
I guess I'll go. I would say I would have the most, I think I have the most crazy instance when it comes to that, because I'm already out the box. You know what I'm saying? I'm already trans. So you can't tell me how to act, or you're supposed to act this way. You transition, so you're supposed to, like, when a trans man, say a trans man start, because you do have gay trans men, so you'll have a trans man messing with Butch Queen, or whatever the case may be, so they're like, so you transition to mess with a boy, or whatever the case may be, and it was like, well, my sexual identity is different from my sexual orientation, but I'm already different. I already transitioned. I'm out the box already. You can't put me in a box. You can't tell me how masculine to be or how feminine to be. I'm already different. My story is already different.
What are your boundaries around that conversation as well? Because I know it's confusing to a lot of people, but also
I'm pretty much open. Some people don't like to have a conversation. Some people do. Like, I think it depends on that person. I just put it in a simple form, like trans man is just another man. It's just a special type of man. Okay. You have your gay men, you have your gay trans men, you have your straight men, you have your straight trans men, you have your pansexual men, you have your pansexual trans men. Like, it's the same. Only thing difference is the trans at the end of it. Okay. That's it.
Okay, gotcha. Does anybody else want to chime in on like how we show up as masc and femme in society and how it makes people comfortable, uncomfortable?
So, and this is just to keep it like a buck. We're talking about how we show. When we say how we're showing up, again, we're not talking about energy. It's given, how do we look?
Cosplay.
It's given cosplay.
Yeah.
You don't care about.
I wouldn't necessarily say that though. Not even to cut you off, because I can be out I could be outside with you, or whatever the case, walk down the street, but I may see a group of guys and they just out there voguing and acting crazy, like, and I'm just like, I ain't walking down the street with them acting like that, like, no, like, you about to get me clocked, like,
okay,
so
okay.
This is like certain things you don't, like, I don't have no problem, you know what I'm saying, when I'm around that and it's given that, but I feel like it's a certain time and place for certain things, and I think this is where masculinity comes in at, because if I say for me, I don't have no problem, like, I can walk down the street with a gay man, but I just don't want you doing the overly most, like, you know what I'm saying, I think I don't know, that's just me.
So is that a form of policing how they're showing up authentically?
No, I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't say policing. I would say that's just my preference.
Okay.
like I said, I don't have a problem with feminine. It's just overly feminine.
Okay.
And in a certain place and time. Like if I'm walking down the street in the hood, I don't want you to be voguing next to me, bro, while we're walking down the street. Now if we had a ball or something, or we had a pride, I mean, do your thing. Like,
Okay. So does this fall into like a respectability type thing? Because that can be a slippery slope, especially in a queer community that we're all trying to live our best lives, show up
Right.
authentically, and then just accept each other as we are. Because we're having certain conversations and it's layered. You know, how do we push back on that? How do we challenge that to let people think like, yes, there are people who think the way that you think, not saying
Right.
it's right or wrong, but it's how do we challenge and evolve from that level of thinking and accept people, not even accept people, just accept people actually. Accept people the way that they are and not judge them for like, you know.
There's no problem with accepting it. Do you have to personally, like, just because I don't accept it don't mean I have to force myself to be around it, or I have to negatively say something about it. I don't have to address it. I feel like everything doesn't need to be addressed. Like every straight person doesn't have to comment on something related to the gay community,
Okay.
or you know what I'm saying, it don't bother you. What we eating don't make you shit, so you don't have to, it doesn't bother you.
Okay.
So why are you commenting about it? Why does it, you know what I'm saying? Why is it a forethought for you, or why is it a thought?
Okay.
When if I don't like it, I just that's not.
So a form of neutrality in
Yeah,
terms of like,
yeah,
I'm neither here
like,
nor
yeah,
there about
yeah,
that.
Like
thing,
it's
but-
not bothering me, so live your fucking best life.
Okay, I understand. Does anybody else want to chime in?
I have a question.
Okay.
So instead of voguing, what if they was pop locking down the street? Would that make a
No,
difference?
I don't know. Even that's
Like,
like, you know
I'm
what I'm
just-
saying, like I just, for me, I don't like extra attention.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know. I kind of already feel like you walk down the street, you command attention. You'll walk down the street, you'll command attention. I just think certain people, and especially us being in the LGBT community, we command attention a lot of the times without us even noticing it. We command the room, or just I think we just have like we know how to dress. You know what I'm saying? We know it's just certain things about us, like, or you might not do fab ass makeup, and your makeup might be fucking fire, or you just not throw that shit on, like, you know what I'm saying? So it may be unsubconscious things that, you know what I'm saying, we already get attention from. So I don't want to add more attention to myself if I'm not a person that likes attention. Now if I'm an attention seeker, then by all means, like, yeah, we about to walk down the street and had a fucking mummers parade.
I think that's the issue. I think that's I think this is when it goes beyond it being a preference, but it's more so what you really want is just to be able to assimilate into everyday life. And that's why I think I have a hard time with this idea of, it's not necessarily that you are mask for mask, but that's your preference. What it is that you want to be able to walk down the street with your homeboy without being clocked, without somebody being able to call you out, or for somebody to treat you different. Because yes, as queer people, we are already outside of the box. We already have a target on our back, and especially then adding on blackness. So really what it is just like, I don't need any more heat on my back. I don't want that attention. I don't want people to feel like they are going to harm me. You know what I mean? So like, even for me, like living in New York, like I know like I'm gonna put on a heel, right? But there are times, depending on the day, to be like, well, I don't feel comfortable wearing this specific outfit on the subway because I fear that someone may hurt me, right? But the bravery and the courage is to be able to stand in that and be like, but because I am who I am and I decide to stand in that fully, I am going to decide to walk out authentically 100% and take on the risk of being harmed, because at the end of the day, when I leave this world, I don't want to think of coulda, shoulda, woulda, and I want to know that I'm leaving here knowing that I was who I wanted to be.
You gotta tell it.
Period.
Questions already?
But that actually gets us. Oh, go ahead, sister.
No, but I'm saying that goes back to our walks of life and my preference. Me transitioning, I already want to be fucking, I don't want to be clocked. That's why I transitioned. So I don't want to add nothing else that would have me get clocked. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, like,
Yeah.
that's my realness.
Yeah, I understand. I think we have just different perspectives
Yeah,
on
I
where
mean,
masculinity and
but-
femininity,
yeah.
and then also from your lived experience, it's like, all right, well, this is this is my experience and this is how I would like to show up in the world and my level of comfortability. But I think where Kalen is coming from is like, all right, well, yes, I understand preference, but there's also a specific type of attention that you weren't trying to draw to yourself. So it's like, we need to acknowledge and get to the root of that, because it's like, all right, well, why don't you want to be seen next to this person? Because he has a certain set of lived experiences that he's going through.
I was just agreeing what he just said.
Yeah.
Just because I don't, you know what I'm saying, my walk of life. Like,
Yeah.
when you're trans, you don't want to, nobody wants to get clocked if you're trans. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get spooked.
Yeah.
Like, me getting spooked now I'm like, bitch.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we understand that it's not a judgment of what you're saying or a judgment of what he's saying. It's just more so we're trying to understand, like, and come to a happy medium of like, all right, this is how you got to this conclusion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the fear of being clocked as trans or being clocked as gay?
For me, it would be both.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be clocked as neither. So when I walk through everyday life, I just want to walk through as like a straight man.
Okay.
That's how I live my life.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we can go on all day. but okay, I did want to, well, this is actually a great segue. I just wanted you panelists to share your personal experiences around navigating your own masculinity and femininity. Is there like a certain point that you remember that was like, I'm not quite this, but I'm not quite that? Mark, you touched on it briefly, but I wanted to know, like, did any of you have like a specific experience that let you know?
Oh, I do. Okay. So I went to Hampton University, and I remember, I think like in my sophomore year, I had blonde highlights and my like these like finger waves in the front, and I was wearing this wearing a Willie Smith catsuit and like leopard shoes, and I was talking to my brother who's straight, and I was like, I'm upset because people keep talking about me. And he was like, well, he was like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror? But that was a great moment for me, because I had to really be like, you are doing the most. And if you're gonna do the most and own doing the most, right? And that was a great moment and a teachable moment for me from my older brother, because he's super straight and a nerd and all the things. But he was like, bruh, you out here like doing all these things. And so from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna carry myself the way I'm gonna carry myself. So I fluctuate between what I'm wearing today, or if I'm wearing a kilt and boots and all the other things. It's funny, we all gave our clutches and purses to Olay when we came up stage, right?
Like, the maskiest, of course.
So for me, and this goes back to what we were just talking about earlier, I think as LGBTQ folks, we have the beauty and freedom to live within the spectrum of masculine and feminine and play into that, how we feel in that moment.
Yeah.
I understand that safety is a problem sometimes, and people don't want to get clocked. But when we live in the privilege that we live in, we do have the freedom to be all the things.
Sincere?
Come back to
Okay, we can circle back. Mark, did you have anything else you want to add to this experience?
So specifically for me, and it was 33. When I turned 33, I went to my mom's house, and I have had for a very long time a very strained relationship with my dad. And my mom and dad, just for context, are like high school sweethearts. So they've been together since she was 14 and he was 15. So fast forward, and even now, like, I can give my dad grace for a lot of things, because I understand that he grew up in a certain era, a certain time, so on and so forth. But growing up, I didn't care about any about that. I was like, you're kind of like a terrible person, and I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But my 33rd birthday, I went to go see my mom. My dad was there. He was washing dishes, and as I'm sitting there talking to my mom, my dad turns around and he was just like, hey, so I know we've never talked about this before, but I know you're gay, and I just hope you know that I love you anyway, and I'm going to do better, because I don't feel like I've showed up for you the way that you needed to. And I really feel like ever since that day, I've been able to manage what it's like for me to kind of balance masculine and feminine, because when I feel like I've only looked at it on the spectrum of it being toxic, right? Like, because that's always been my dealings with it. I started to notice that the man closest to me was softening, and softening, being softer to me, right? And I didn't see it as like a weak thing, and he wasn't looking at me like I was weak, right? Like he just seen that he had to tend to me differently, which started to help me really figure out what that meant for me, because I'm just like, oh, so I can, at this big age, really be all these things, and the person, the most prominent male figure closest to me really is fucking with it. So I was just like, oh, okay, so let me get the nail art. Let me just do the things, because I just felt like if he was cool with it, like, and it's funny because I never really felt like I needed the acceptance of my dad, but to have had it and to just have him kind of show up, now I'll be like, oh, so this is why they be like, kids need dads. Like, because for a long time I was like, child, I got my mom. But it really helped me play more into what masculine could look like, because I felt like now I have like this this role model, for instance. Like I can see, because he's a manly man, but I'm watching him be softer with me. I'm watching him be softer with the grandkids and doing all these things. So I'm just like, oh, okay. Because the feminine part I felt like I had down. It was really like what a good example of masculinity looked like. And now that I have it, I'm just like, I feel like I thrive.
I love it. Kalen?
Well, I grew up in Kansas, so
So let's start there.
I always stood out, you know, from the jump. So I don't think the concept even was in my mind until it came to desirability. I think once I realized, especially when it came to success, because I think what I was taught was that if you got a good job, or if you could cook, if you could clean, if you could do all these things, and that made you the person the catch, you know what I mean? And I think I was shocked when I found out that, like, in the community that wasn't enough, that I needed to present a certain way, or I needed to have a six-pack, or I needed to have muscles. And I'd be like, you mean I'm rich and I can't get a man? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, that's crazy. So I think that was the shock to me, and I actually have this conversation a lot, especially because the gays also tend to only support people that they feel like they can sleep with.
Well,
Top comment.
And I have this conversation with my best friend Philemon Chambers a lot, because the gays love Philemon, and I often have this conversation and being like, there is so much that you are able to get away with, or that you will have access to, because people, they want to sleep with you, they want you. I said, I don't have that luxury. You know what I mean? And so there are things about me that does have privilege. Like, I'm very aware of that I may seem more palatable because I live in like this joy and laughter, and especially when it comes to white people. You know what I mean? So I do understand how that privilege exists. But I think what is hard about that is, it's like, yeah, okay, you're achieving all these things and you're working and you're doing this and you're going here, you're flying there. But at the end of the day, when I do all those things and I go home to myself. You know what I mean? And it's not a case of feeling like, not saying like there's no one that will want me, but it almost feels like when you are on the more feminine side of the spectrum, it's almost like you have to settle. And I think when you are also someone that is more on the feminine side of the spectrum, but you have masculine energy, then that makes people uncomfortable as well, because they want me to be real soft. They want to be able to tell me what to do. And I'm like that Jill Scott video. You can't tell me what to do. Okay, exactly. It's not happening.
you was waiting for that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, precisely.
Oh, that's right.
So, and so I think it is hard navigating and juggling all that, especially when you know that when people say the preference is it's a little bit more nuanced than we actually talk about. Right. You know what I mean? When it actually has more rooted, like I said, in like assimilation and blending in and stuff like that, you know? Yeah.
And we can deep dive into it in a second, but also we have Q&A. All right, how much longer do we have? Got you. Okay, so let's do 3 questions. We'll start right here. All right, what's your question? I'll come to you. Come on.
So I would say this question is for the both of you guys, because just going off of your outfits alone, right? some may say your outfits are more feminine, more than masculine. And as we know in the dating community, being feminine and being masculine is not just always based off how you act, it's based off how you look. And do you sometimes ever feel like because you are masculine presenting, your femininity is more accepted because of it?
Yes. 100%.
To the mic.
100%.
Say to the mic.
Oh, yes, 100%. Sorry. Because to Kalen's point, that is my privilege. I feel like the beard, the whole aesthetic, like I am easy to digest. So a little femininity to someone else might be attractive, right? I have a partner, he's a lot more feminine than me, like a lot more feminine than I am. But also, he gives more pretty privilege, right? Like, so I also feel like that's why people are able to digest his femininity. It's all a thing, but I also feel like that's why the whole MASC thing doesn't necessarily make sense to me, right? Because this is, as we call like a cosplay, like it's just a costume. Like this is how I look. But when we start to talk about, am I protective? Because I can look like this, and then you can really get into some jam, and I'd be like, okay, I see you later.
That's the one.
I see you later, right? Like, am I resilient? Like, how do these real masculine qualities really fit? Because not for nothing, a lot of people are up in the cosplay, but really have more feminine energy, and yeah.
We can go on for days, but we gotta keep it going. Go ahead, Kalen.
I think I choose to show up like this because I know that my existence alone is revolutionary. And I know that the more authentic that I show up, then the more normalized it becomes. You know what I mean? That makes it easier for everybody in the room. You know what I mean? So it's like if I choose to make myself small or to assimilate to what people want me to be, then I'm only conforming to what their ideas are for us. You know what I mean? But I always tell, I remember, and I used to get into it all the time with people on Twitter about it, but like when people like the dog, even people that are way more feminine than me, I'm like, actually, no, they are very brave to show up like that. You know what I mean? I think these are the most courageous people because they are choosing, they know that they may lose their life. Somebody may look at them and be like, no, I want them out of here because they are disgusting to me or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's like when you show up like that, like when I look at old clips of like RuPaul on like Sister Sister, I'm like, we are not even acknowledged, like people like Miss J and all these people that show up on mainstream media as themselves have made it possible for people like me to be able to exist in Hollywood today. If they wouldn't have done that, I could not stand here today. I could not do the work that I do. And so that is why I owe it to them. I owe it to everybody that lost their lives during the AIDS epidemic, that didn't get to live the dreams that I'm able to do, to show up because they wanted to so bad, but especially during that time were not afforded the privilege to do so.
Amen. All right, so we gonna go to the next question. I don't want to block the camera, so you got it.
Oh, just project. I can project. Okay. So I really appreciated some of the conversation that was happening, but I think for me, something that was coming out was also, I recognize that, I'll say for me, I have a privilege of presenting as a masculine person, and so it's very difficult for me to be clocked as I'm walking down the street. However, that, for me, I also recognize comes as a privilege, and so I'm wondering, on y'all's end, like I feel like there's a space where we should be able to advocate for those who are a lot more feminine than I present as, and I don't want to try to like lean into femphobia and whatnot. So what is it you would ask of masculine presenting men and folks who live in their masculine energy a little bit more to do whenever we are also witnessing femphobia happen in the space, or be able to like make sure y'all feel as protected as possible?
It's a great question.
That's a great question. I mean, I would just say show up, right? It's how are we showing up, right? Especially right now with what's happening in this country. It's like, how are we showing up for the dolls? How are we showing up for trans folks? How are we showing up for femme folks? Like, we have to show up and be, it's not a us versus them thing. It's us against everybody. And so we have to protect all of us, right? And just because people are mask presenting doesn't also mean that they're strong. right? We don't want to say that either, because as we said, a lot of this is cosplay. So we have to be here as a community of black folks, of black LGBTQ folks at all of our intersections. We don't have time to be like, they're too femme. It's like, that's crazy.
And I think grace goes along part into that too, because a lot of people are understanding how to unlearn toxic masculinity, but also learning to embrace femininity too. So like a lot of people don't have the language to be, hey, say, I can show up for you in this way because this is how you need me to show up. Or I'm unlearning this thing, so like I may not get all the words right and I don't want to be judged or like get canceled because I say the wrong thing. Like grace going back and forth both ways, so you can learn that person and learn how to show up for them, because again, we're all not a monolith. So like the way I need you to show up for me is not going to be the same way you need to show up for you or whatever, but just learn each other, understand each other, and give grace while each other grow to show up for you in the way that you need them to.
Also, don't pick and choose who you're going to show up for. If you're going to show
Great
up for
point.
one, show up for all.
Exactly.
Motherfuckers like to pick and choose, or I'm gonna show up for my girlfriend. I'm gonna have selective outrage because it's
Right.
my girlfriend.
Right.
But I ain't gonna say nothing because the same situation just happened to somebody else. But you know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna stand up, stand up.
That's a great point. All right. Did anybody else?
I'm protecting the girl.
Okay. Protect the dolls. Absolutely.
At all costs. Period. At all
Did you have
costs.
anything you want to contribute to this question?
I think it's also making sure that you're checking yourself and how you view it. Like if you see somebody that's more feminine, like what is stirring up in your own body, and how are you talking about it to other people, or what are the thoughts? Or in asking yourself, is it actually jealousy? You know, am I actually jealous that you have this courage and I haven't been able to unlock that in my own spirit to figure out how I can embrace that side of myself? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of men I done dated that became a lot more feminine after me. You know what I mean? And I be like, hold on now. I said, what did I unlock? Okay, like Pandora's box. You know what I mean? So, and also being able to check your friends about that. You know, especially if it's not affecting you, it's been like, well, who cares? You know, let them be who they are. You know what I mean? So being able to stand in that and to check it in the moment.
Okay. Love that. Mark?
Ask questions. That could just be the inquisitive Gemini in me, but I
Air sign
find
gang.
that usually ignorance is shrouded in just not knowing. And I will ask a million questions. I want to know how we got from point A to point B. And then to Sincere's point, I treat it like I would a friend. If you're not in the room, just know that I'm gonna advocate for you, because I never was gonna allow someone to talk about my friend in any room. And I look at it the same way, like the way I feel, or the way we can advocate for around femphobia is really just to speak up for it, no matter what the situation is and no matter what room you're in.
Do we have time for one more? Or?
I think we got a wrap.
Okay, all right,
But
well.
everyone,
that's it.
please give our panelists a round of applause. Any last minute plugs? Any last minute plugs? Socials, you want to plug yourselves?
Okay, so I'm gonna go last, but everybody, your socials, where we can find you, where we can follow all your work, let us know everything that's going down with you. We can go left or right. Well, right to left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm at Emil Wilbekin, which is a lot. It's EMILWILBEKIN, or at Native Son Now.
There we go.
I should have just done
Kingson_215 on IG, all social media platforms. KINGSIN_215.
It's going to be Mark My Style with a C. It's actually Marc Vincent, but Olu, it's okay.
We give you grace. We give you grace.
We're giving Ulu grace. We're not doing that.
And currently I'm working on a project. It's called the Butch Queen Project. It's literally this very conversation. It's a photography exhibition that is centered around like men living in their masculine and their feminine. So I'm really excited to give that to you when it's done.
Very easy. The Kalen Allen.
We already know. But before I say my thing, I wanted to do a special shout out because Mark is one of my best friends, and I remember we started this exact conversation in 2019, and just dream about what I'm gonna do. I love to talk. I'm a yapper, so I'm gonna just head panels and all these things. And he was talking about creating this project, and here we are in 2025 on the panel doing exactly what we're doing. And I've learned so much from you, and I just want to know I'm so proud of you, and thank you so much for being such a great friend. And I love seeing you blossom, so it's amazing. So with all that being said, KP official on Instagram, KP_official #1, and the show that I'm creating, in the process of creating, is called Making a Moment. So it's makingamoment.official on Instagram. You can follow it everywhere. Okay, so thank you everybody for showing up. We all getting ready for that block party later. Yes, I'll see y'all out there. All right.
Yes. Thank you again for coming up.